local demand, we have to strengthen the competitiveness, and of course everything is a part of that one. It's also the infrastructure investments, it's salaries, pensions, exchange rate, etc., etc. So I think all in all, that's after 2 decades in transition, I think that all of these countries should go back to the drawing board and to see, you know, what's going to be the growth model for the next 1 or 2 decades. Even stronger countries like, than Serbia, such as Hungary and many others. I mean, you have now proof that they cannot grow as they grew up till now, even though they have a support of Brussels, a much stronger one than what we have. But definitely, I think that the solution should be on the expenditure side and not on the revenue side, although politicians just love to work on the revenue side. I mean, just look to Hungary and look even to Austria, you know, we will tax bankers, we will tax these guys, we will tax that guys, and we are going to solve the problems. You're not going to solve the problems this way. Once more, the solution is on the expenditure side. Of course, it's not popular. Look at France, look at many other countries, but I think there is no way around it. So much for me, and I would gladly answer any questions you may have, not only regarding Serbia, but the region as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have listened in my life to lots of central bankers, but I must say you never had such a very frank analysis about the problems facing a land like Serbia. Again, I think you have said that you don't have enough support from Brussels, but if our Serbian friends continue to be as realistic as you are now, I think you will be astonished. You will get a lot of support from Brussels in the forthcoming elections. Now, we go to the questions. You will again get lots of very frank answers, but that is, I think, very important. I think I see the first gentleman on the left side behind. Thank you.
Yes.
Could you just give your name, please?
Yes, Bashar Narayan. I'm head of Asia Pacific at Columbus here. Thank you, Mr. Jelicic. That was a very interesting presentation. It's evident that you've done a good job during these turbulent times as the governor of the Reserve Bank. But my question is, it seems that having heard that the Eurozone-based companies sort of own 75% of the banking sector, as well as 97% of all retail savings is in euros, it seems that the former competitive advantage that Serbia used to have as a Eastern European country where it's exotic, you could get higher returns, you could get a competitive advantage, that seems to be eroding away because now it's really Euroized, as you said. How do you see yourself, or what is your personal opinion in dealing with the challenges? Because Serbia is now losing this competitive advantage. I mean, what do you personally see how Serbia will be positioned in the future to not be, because you obviously have all the disadvantages of not being in the euro, but you have, and of course being exposed to the euro fluctuations as the euro has been devalued recently, but not having Brussels on your back door. So what is your personal opinion how Serbia should structure itself in the future, strategically?
Well, I mentioned that 97-98% of the savings are in euros, but
yes,
it doesn't mean that people are paid in euros. So what basically do, the salaries are denominated in euros. The salaries are denominated in dinars. People are basically getting their salary in dinars, but what they do at the end of the month, when they got their salary, they basically take the dinars, they convert it in euros, and they put the euro savings into the banking sector. Of course, it's a huge challenge then to the banks, based on these euro deposits, to provide loans, first of all, in dinars. You cannot do that. So what do? You provide dinar loans, which are depending on the foreign exchange development. Yeah. So basically, you pay them out in dinars, and you say, people, you are going to get, I mean, today, a loan of 1,000 euros paid out in dinars, but your repayment will be pending on the exchange rate movement, because once more, the banks have 1,000 euros deposit, yeah, on one side. So on the other side, they have to be covered with the foreign exchange risk. You just imagine when the exchange rate goes from 76 to 107, what does it mean for a debtor? Yeah? So basically your monthly payment goes up by some 35%. Yeah? I mean, so much about flexibility. People say, oh, flexibility is great, but so much? In such a short time? Yeah. So banks have their automatic stabilizer. The automatic stabilizer is once more that they provide euro loans, which are only paid out in dinars, but they are pending on the once more they are pending on the of the exchange development of the euro, and basically they are euro loans. But of course, they still have the risk. Will the debtor be able to service the loan if the exchange rate goes up? And it went up already, as I mentioned to you, from 76 to 80 to 90 to 100. And what if it will continue? Yeah? Because once more, the Serbian citizen, when he goes to work, he gets his salary, which is in dinars. So he is the one who carries the foreign exchange risk. It's not easy, to tell you honestly, for, I mean, the budget now, government of Republic of Serbia issuing bonds. It's much easier to convince somebody to trust the stability of the dinar in Vienna, in Frankfurt, and in London than to convince somebody locally. Yeah? I mean, to convince somebody locally, again, to save in dinars for 2, 3, 5 years, people say, we heard this story, this cheesy story, many, many times from many different governors during the last 40 years, and all of them cheated us. Yeah? So why should we trust you now that we should save in dinars? You know, we try to explain to them, you know, that when you save, the interest you get should be compared to the inflation rate. Yeah? But they say, when we save, we only save in the currency that will provide us, so to say, and depending on the exchange rate movement. Yeah? So because people have seen, you know, as the exchange rate is moving, basically the more the dinar depreciates, even more euro deposits you have, and this is why we ended up, as I mentioned to you, 97, 98%. And to de-eurorize the system, I mean, there are only 2 countries that, one of them had a partial success, that was Russia, and the other country that was really able to do that, that's Turkey. I mean, Turkey is the only country that was able, so to say, turn back to the lira, to the Turkish lira. It's pretty expensive. I still think it pays off, especially for a country like Serbia, you know, till we go through the exercise of being an EU member, and then we still need an exercise to be a member of the Eurozone. I mean, we still have at least 10 years to go. I think it pays off, but it's a hell of a lot of work, yeah, to turn back to the local currency and to convince people to trust the local currency, because we have done everything during the last 40 years to convince people not to save in local currency, unfortunately.
In the long term, strategically, you see, that's how you see Serbia should be heading towards the euro, or do you feel that it should create its own?
Well, you know, if I look not only to our economy, to our economic ties and political ties, but you know, even if I look to the number of Serbs living abroad, I mean, I think there is no need to confirm, you know, where should Serbia belong to. Definitely that's the way. And of course the speed, I have a feeling it's much more depends on us than on the EU. And I am confident that with this, you know, approval that we got the day before yesterday, that we will get to the final point faster.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, the gentleman on the second row, please. Could you give your name, please? Affiliation.
Yes, my name is Goran Krstić from Belgrade, and my question is connected to the first question. There have been some thoughts in Serbia to introduce the euro as the second official currency. So what effects would that have? Who would benefit from such a move, and what would be the disadvantages? And would that be possible at all to do something like that?
Well, let me, you just mentioned to me that I was provoking. So, I mean, definitely beneficiary of implementing euro as a legal tender would be, among others, the central bank. Yeah? Because, you know, we don't need to carry out any monetary policy. in the future. And the institution that will be under a huge pressure, that's definitely the government and the Ministry of Finance. Yeah? Because they cannot use any more inflation solving their problems. Yeah? And inflation actually filling up the budget is a very good tool for them. The question is, of course, to which extent implementing a euro would be beneficial for a country for a medium and long term. I'm convinced that it would be a disaster. Let me just give you an example. I mean, if Greece would have its own currency, yeah, they would solve 90% of their problems. Once more, the main problem of theirs was that they had euro, and they cannot use the usual tricks and games as they did the drachma during the 70s, 80s, and 90s to inflate themselves outside the problem. Yeah? So once more, there is again benefit. There's pluses and minuses. Definitely, the central bank would hugely benefit from that one. Basically, same salary, no work. It's much easier work for the central banker. But I think from the country, generally speaking, yeah, it would not be a useful tool at this junction. And but once more, I think that today in Serbia, after a long time, nobody talks about that one. Maybe it will come back. And of course, needless to say, you can implement euro as a legal tender only illegally. Yeah? Just give you an example. Some of the countries that did that, basically they have zero ties with the ECB, no technical support, no financial support. And the question is still, will they be able, thinking about concretely Montenegro, to enter the European Monetary Union, even if they have the political support, without their own legal tender. And I can assure you that a lot of people in Montenegro are now telling, maybe that's not the best and the easiest way to the EU by implementing euro first and then do all the structural reforms.
Thank you very much. May I add from the Brussels point of view, because I was working 8 years in Brussels, that actually we always discourage any country who is not member of the European Union to use the euro. The case of Crna, Montenegro, they did it not with saying yes by the European Central Bank, they just did it. And we don't think that was a very good idea. It was also Iceland, when they got very desperate, they were thinking about using the euro single-handed, like Argentina used the US dollar. They were very much discouraged from doing this because this doesn't give you any easier way for membership or anything like this. Thank you. So
maybe just one more thing. I mean, if you are a small country like Serbia, the exchange rate is an extremely important signaling mechanism. I remember once sitting next to the president, and I did an event chart, and he looks at the event chart and he looks, what are these fluctuations of the exchange rate? What is this one? I told him, well, this one we had a depreciation of the dinar by 1.5% within 1 day from a very single reason. It looked like the radicals, the nationalists, are going to build up a government, Then he looks, and what is this one? Appreciation of 1%. I thought, that's the single day that you guys caught Radovan Karadzic. And everybody was confident after this one, there is a much higher chance that our European road is going to be speeded up. So you told me, wow, this is a great signaling mechanism, what's going on? Of course, politicians love the positive side of the signals, but we love to take away the negative side of the signals, So once more, if you go to the doctor and he tells you the bad news, the problem is not with the doctor, the problem is with you, And, people say, or I used to tell them, that this is like measuring the temperature, and you don't solve the problem by switching off this measurement, You solve the problem by doing something proactive.
Thank you very much. Yes, in the Middle Ages, the messenger who had bad news was usually executed, but the bad news stayed. Other questions, please? If there is none, I think I would very much like to thank you for this very frank statement. I personally learned a lot, and I learned a lot of also positive things about Serbia. Usually when you speak to the central bankers, you have the feeling you speak like the famous Oracle of Delphi in the Greek times, you know, they give you kind of ambiguous answers. I think